Bill, Bob, hello, hello. Sorry for the delay, folks. I forgot something at home, but I was able to find it online. Don't know why I couldn't find it on the computer, but fortunately the iPad works, so hey, what the heck. We won't worry about that. Oops. Somebody reverse this? There we go. Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
And I didn't bring some other things with me because the thumb drive is sitting.
Tell us what you didn't do. Tell us what you're doing.
Okay. I left a thumb drive sitting, charging up so that, it's a wireless thumb drive that I can use with the iPad. And last night I had the bright idea of plugging it in and powering it up. I just kind of left it there. So it's fully powered now, and I don't have it. Okay. A couple of quick updates. Okay, no, the way I've got it, I'm going to call on our EMD representative to give us any updates that we have.
Okay.
Anybody?
That would be me.
That would be you.
Yeah,
Okay.
good morning. I'm kind of filling in for someone who couldn't do it today, so let me see. Good morning. Veronica Hendricks. It's nice to see everybody like a couple of weekends before the holiday season really gets geared up, so good to see you. In terms of one of the initiatives that I'm working on the Ready Your LA Neighborhood Initiative, and we're really happy that it's moving along quite well. We're working with the contractor. One of the main phases of the program has been completed. The approval of the template that we're going to be using to work with neighborhoods and communities. It features Map Your Neighborhood, which a lot of people are really happy about. And so that's moved forward. We have a final draft of that that's been approved. We have a trifold that's also been approved, so we're moving forward with that. Next phase of the project is to do the video, which will include, it'll be an instructional video on how to complete the template. It'll also feature the mayor. So we're really happy that the mayor has joined us in this effort. So as we've done with other projects and products that we've rolled out with the City of LA, when the mayor does support them and endorse them, they become the official, tool of the City of Los Angeles. For example, when we created the Ready LA site, which is currently being redone, that's another update for you. We have a contractor working on that. The prior mayor, Mayor Villaraigosa, was very adamant in all of our projects being labeled the official whatever of the City of Los Angeles. So Ready LA is known as the official readiness, response, and recovery website for Angelenos. And I'm assuming that after we finish with the Ready Your Neighborhood program, which is a comprehensive program that talks about individual preparedness, neighborhood preparedness, exercising, organizing your neighborhood. It's kind of like an umbrella approach, a comprehensive program. We're also certain that the mayor will get behind Ready Your LA Neighborhood and brand and label it as the official preparedness site for neighborhoods. So we're really excited about that. In terms of the budget process, don't know a lot about it because it's not, we work unfortunately in silos in my department, which we're trying to change. But I know that they did put forth a budget package. They're asking for some additional staff, and I think Carol may have communicated with you about that, and you'll be sharing the details about that later.
Can you explain what in silo means?
Oh, silo means we work in our little bubbles. That's just an emergency management military term. We work in little silos, and you only do what you're supposed to do or what you're tasked to do. But our new general manager is working hard to get us out of those silos. But with the workload that we have, it's really challenging. One of the other updates is that the Emergency Operations Center was activated at a level 2 last week. I don't know if you were aware of that, to support the Creek Fire and also the Skirball Fire. A few people lost their homes, businesses were damaged. LA Unified shut down schools, shelter sites were open. So we activated at a level 2 to support that effort. The city had to make a lot of decisions about resources, and so that's what we do in that room there. And it was a 4-day activation last week from Tuesday to Friday. And then we deactivated the Emergency Operations Center. And then we stood up a local assistance center, which is currently being run in the San Fernando Valley Lakeview Terrace Recreational Center. And there are about 40 different city, county, and governmental agencies who are there working with residents to help them kind of recover from the fire. We've got everything from the DMV, the Small Business Administration, various other agencies to help people recover. The insurance commissioner office is there to help people understand coverage of their loss and to make sure that they're not being scammed. And I spent Friday, was it Friday? No, I was there Wednesday. I was there Wednesday. We saw about 100 people when I was there on Wednesday, and they're traumatized. It's a difficult and unimaginable situation to have lost your home, your life. And the city is making some attempts to help them get the resources they need to get on the road to recovery, whether it's it's extended sheltering and working with the American Red Cross on that. But it was pretty emotional, some of the stories. So the LAC is also working, stood up today. I think today is the final day that I know. It may continue next week, but I'm not sure. But if you know anyone who's lost their homes, just reach out to us or go on our website. There's information about the local assistance center. So I think that's about all that I have, unless there are any questions. Yes?
I have a few questions. I'm Conrad from Greater Wilshire, and I'm tasked with rolling out some preparedness in our area. So I've been doing a lot of digging on all the various silo sites out there. I noticed one thing that they all seem to have in common, which is references to CERT and
Yes.
encouraging people to get involved
Yes.
if they're so inclined. So I was curious about two things with regard to CERT in terms of how that's fitting into the new Ready LA website.
Yes,
as you mentioned.
that's part of the exercise and the education component, is we're going to recommend people become trained in CERT.
Okay.
So that's part of it. And as we roll out this program, I'll be sharing more components about it. But initially, getting the template off the ground so that we can start actually working with neighborhoods to help them do their planning has been the huge hurdle that we've just jumped over.
For the number of people to be trained in CERT?
Pardon me, say that again, please?
What's your goal for the number of CERT?
We don't have a goal. We work with the fire department. As you well know, it's the fire department that runs the CERT program. I'm not sure of the conversations that our general manager has had with fire and whether or not they've been collaborating in any kind of goals. But certainly our program is going to be directing people to get involved in CERT. I was looking at one of your handouts where you're recommending an increase in instructors. So as we direct more people or encourage more people to become enrolled in CERT and to have CERT training, initiatives like that are going to become critical. Yes.
Yeah. What is the objective that you're trying to solve by telling people to take CERT?
That is one of the, this is a very small component. Readier LA Neighborhood is a complete
What is the
and
objective?
what is the objective?
Yes.
So that they'll be more effective in organizing their neighborhoods. That's just one of the tools. That's not the only training tool. We're also recommending CPR training in addition to that. We're also asking them to do basic readiness preparedness training. CERT is just a very small piece. So I don't want you to get so focused on CERT thinking that Ready Your LA Neighborhood is all about CERT. It's about a lot of different components. Right here, Rebecca.
In regards to funding, I assume that each neighborhood council or group is going to be responsible for funding a particular training session, or is
See,
it?
I don't know if your neighborhood councils will be tasked with that. What I do know is that as a city agency, we are responsible for reaching out to communities and encouraging them to get prepared. And what we will provide for them is materials to organize their neighborhoods. We also will provide for them maps of their communities so that they can get started. We'll provide them with videos that kind of collateral support, it really is up to the community to organize, to do the training so that they are prepared. And if you're familiar with Map Your Neighborhood, you know exactly how it works. We don't deviate much more from what's currently in place. We've got a couple of nuances with our approach, but it is basically leveraging the expertise and the effectiveness of Map Your Neighborhood. My general manager is completely on board, and so is the mayor. Right here.
Okay, thank you. So following up on my original CERT question, having drilled into the CERT website, I know that they are supporting the neighborhood team program, which is probably analogous to what you're describing, but I'm just wondering if that is, if the neighborhood team program is language that you're seeing included in any of the literature.
No, we're not in our language.
Okay.
We're just higher level. We're just talking about encouraging people to get training.
Right.
And CERT is just one of them. I don't have the brochure in front of me, and we're still fleshing it out as we go. If there's other training that we can recommend for communities to get involved in to make them, more effective in responding and leveraging their resources, we're going to do that. But I know CPR is huge, and I'm pushing on a personal level is infant CPR or toddler CPR. That's really important to me. I'm not hearing people talk about that a lot. And I know that it's part of the training when it comes to CPR, but I want to see a focus on that for young mothers and for grandparents who have children, because it's really critical. I'm going to come to you.
You mentioned that. Are these available now in the films? Are they available, or is this in the future?
Right now, we are doing a pilot program to support our new initiative, so that will be available in the future. But for right now, the pilot program is actually providing maps for the neighborhoods, and it's basically a map of your street. It could be a map of 30 homes or 15 homes. In my case, I just went through the Map Your Neighborhood process with my neighborhood. It's recommended you do 15 to 25 homes. But I live in a neighborhood where I have a block captain who is a minister, and he considers us his flock, which was a great word that Ben gave to us, because Ben facilitated the meeting. And he was very clear and adamant that we shouldn't put restrictions on him on how many people could be part of our neighborhood. So we ended up incorporating about 45 homes, which are homes and relationships that he has built. So what we're learning is that we have to have some sense of flexibility. Reverend Palmer, who is a very fine man.
Where is this? Sorry.
This is my neighborhood.
Which is?
Los Angeles, South Los Angeles.
Okay, so
I live in
because I'm in South Coast, I'm wondering.
I live in South Los Angeles, just near Culver City area, right up against Culver City.
Okay. And
my block captain knows everybody on our block, without exception. The thought of he says, and the thought of another outside agency telling me that we could only do 25 homes or 15 homes is unreasonable. He says, I have a relationship with every one of these families, and we should all work together. I didn't know that.
How many homes are there in the city of Los Angeles?
There are 4 million, but what I'm saying to you on a block level, he was not willing to break our block into 2 quadrants of 15 homes. He says, because I have relationships with all of these people and I'm the block captain. So what we're learning is we have to be flexible. If for an outside organization it may not seem reasonable, but that outside organization is going to leave. And the neighbors are going to be responsible for managing how they respond. So, and I fought him on this, but at the end of the day, I had to give in, because I have relationships, also very close relationships, with neighbors on both ends of my neighborhood. And I was really struggling, okay, should I do these 15 homes or should I do these 15 homes? And if I do these over here, then they're going to be mad. It was amazing. But at the end of the day, we all came together and we created a plan that works for all of us. So what I'm saying is that we've learned that we have to be flexible. Communities know, neighborhoods know their neighbors. Okay, and we have right here.
I
I'd just like to let you know how my plan has worked out. I'm in Sunland to Honda, and I did my plan before we had the map your neighborhood. It was, what was the other program called?
Five steps?
The 5 steps.
Yes.
I did the 5 steps. And I incorporated, I want to say 25 homes into it, and it was my street on both sides. A couple of people on the next cross street, and then a few people on the end of another street, just intermittent people that wanted to be a part of this, because not everybody wants to be a part.
Exactly.
But I did knock on 40 doors, and out of the 40, I only got 12 that said yes.
That's
And
a
then,
lot.
You know, then I incorporated additionally to the 12, a few other people that I knew in the neighborhood that said, yeah, I'm ready, I'm willing, and I will help if there's an emergency. And as you know, we just had to evacuate last week due to the creek fire. And I'm happy to say that, you know, I went door to door and knocked on people's doors about 2 hours after the police came through with a bullhorn saying, you need to leave. And a lot of those people didn't know. One of them was Armenian, and he said he didn't understand, and I just used sign language, and he said, oh, I understand. Because you know,
And he knew you. Did you know him?
Yeah, yeah,
And
he
see,
knows
it's
me.
all, what I'm learning too, not to cut you off, is that in times of disaster, of course, people come together and they get to know each other under the worst circumstances. But if you can know them before it happens, you've got that rapport and that connection, and it means so much. I mean, that knock on the door, you went to his home. It's like, I know you. You're telling me something that is credible. Not that I don't believe the law enforcement, but you came to me. You're my neighbor, and I'm going to listen to you.
Also, you know, several people who were in their homes that I knocked on said they hadn't heard the police.
Wow.
So, you know, and we had a fire that was burning a half mile away, and it was blowing toward our neighborhood.
God
The winds
bless
were
you.
blowing toward us. So anyway, and then a couple other people on the cross street went and knocked on doors. So we had people actually doing something because we had organized these meetings. And we continue to meet like every other month. We do a potluck. And then we
Nice.
talk about, we reiterate what to do in an emergency.
I like that. And, you know, and I think that's something well, in fact, that's something, I didn't think of it, but Reverend Palmer was saying the same thing. He says, we should gather periodically. If we can't get everybody together, let's just do these small groups. And I said, yeah, we can do them all at your house. Okay, in the back.
And they forget too.
This was regarding the CPR of like a moment ago.
Yes.
So we're both from the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council, and we actually, Mike Haynes, our safety officer, and he actually does CPR and first aid classes every month.
Which are great. I took it.
Yeah,
It's
they're
fantastic.
and
Nice.
our neighborhood is really responding
That's so
positively.
important.
He just held one last week where 27 people came out. But the problem with having, just like our neighborhood council, like with Red Cross and with American Heart Association, their fees are going up to
Yeah.
get licensed, and our neighborhood council only has so much funds dedicated to certifying people, and people want to get certified if they take a class. They don't want to just take the class
Exactly.
for taking it. Is there any way, like the emergency, like we'd be able to get, like, because he's certified to teach it, to do everything. It's just that it's cost prohibitive to
Right.
certify everyone in the class, because he really does want to bring CPR, infant CPR and first aid to our neighborhood.
I hear what you're saying. I can't answer that question because we don't fund those kinds of programs. I don't know if we have any grants that would fund that. That's something that I have to talk to my general manager about, because I wouldn't even want to address that. I'm going to come back to you in a second, but the gentleman in the back. No, right, but with the hat.
Yeah, hi.
Several things. Obviously, this kind of discussion can go on forever.
Yes, and I was looking at the clock.
But
I'm
you
so
talked
sorry.
about, you've approved the template for our land, you've approved the trifold, you want to involve us. How come we haven't seen any of that stuff or been asked for
You
our
will be
input?
seeing it soon.
You've already done it. You said you approved it. Why didn't we see it before it was approved?
That's a very good question.
You want us involved or not? To involve us after the fact. Oh, this is approved, this is final, you can't change
You make a
anything.
good
We want to
point.
show you what you did, what do you like about it.
You make a
Let's
good
do it.
point.
Here, here.
Thank you. I will take that back to my management.
But it's not a new idea.
But it's not a
Yeah,
new-
it will be
it's-
new.
it's-
That's
no,
my
it's-
big concern,
it's
is that
not.
already I've heard,
It's
well,
not
you're
a
going
new
to
idea.
involve local preparedness and a bunch of other stuff. Now you're going well beyond the scope of what that was. Also, you know, you talk about the idea of 50, 40 homes. That's great from one standpoint. You have gone through the Map Your Neighborhood program. You said so. When you get 45 people in a room and you start saying, who lives in house 1, name, address, phone number, who has what skills, who has what equipment, your 90-minute program is now half a day or more.
Well, let me say this to you.
You've done it ahead
never
of time,
get that many
you know,
people in a
that
room.
has an option. Certainly you have to,
We didn't get
you
that
know,
many people in
consider
a
it,
room,
but
just to be fair. And as I said, as it's been mentioned, not everybody will participate, and that's fine. We had about 15 people in the room is what we had. And that's how we worked. Now, Reverend Palmer has done his due diligence in communicating what we've done to the other members. But what I'm saying to you is that when you have unique situations like mine, and I'm telling everybody who will listen, because we need to listen to neighborhoods.
so when will you listen to me?
I'm listening to you right now.
Oh, no. You've been talking over me for the last 3 minutes.
Well, I apologize, I don't mean to do that. Can we talk about this offline then, so Leonard can get on with
Sure.
the meeting? All right. Leonard, I'm going to turn it over to you because
One thing I'd love for you to take back
Okay.
to your team. Sorry, we've how do I turn it on? Okay, we've talked about homeowners a lot, and I'm a renter, so I always think about how things are a little different for renters. I know that when we had the drought, some of the city laws were changed so that landlords could not prohibit people from drying their clothes outside, or maybe it was during power crisis or something. So I'm wondering, I think tenants have concerns around what they can legally do in terms of anchoring furniture to the wall, in terms of storage of fuel, for example, within their units, you know, cooking fuel and all of that. And I would hope that that was going to be addressed to put any of their concerns at ease so that they would be more inclined to get prepared. And I'm just asking you to take this back to your team. I'm not asking for a response.
All right. Thank you.
So,
I will.
specific things to empower tenants with the knowledge of how they are protected by the law to prepare themselves.
All right. Okay, Leonard, I'm going to have to turn this back over to you because we can go on, but can we talk after the meeting? I'll be
I tried to talk to you a month ago.
To understand, in this room are the people in the city who are most concerned about emergency preparedness.
Correct.
You are, by not using the expertise here, you are missing a tremendous opportunity to learn.
And I will take that back to my management, I guarantee you.
Good.
All right, thank you for your
And can
time.
we get a response in paper or in person?
I will have our general manager, well, let me say this. I will talk to my general manager about the response that he will give to you.
And she'll ask him to call me.
Okay.
And that's exactly what he will do.
And for Monday at our next meeting, because he loves it, so.
We could, yeah, no, he's showing up, he's definitely showing up. So, yeah, things are changing, yes, now we're not gonna get into to how government works and such. In any event, updates, general updates, what do we got? I read some interesting articles on the American Radio Relay League, their newsletter, and it shows citizen involvement. These were specifically ham radio operators, but citizen involvement in the Sonoma fire that destroyed some of my friends' houses, and citizen involvement in the Thomas fire, setting up communication networks. There's a realization, and this is something that Los Angeles should look at. In the Sonoma fire, all of the infrastructure disappeared. Landlines disappeared, cable disappeared, cell phones disappeared. People who happened to have satellite internet were able to keep running because they had satellite, if they had power.
Yeah.
But every communication infrastructure disappeared in Sonoma County, of the big fire up there. And so the ham radio operators were involved at both the hospitals and at the evacuation centers, and they kept up communication between those areas and everybody else. So this is something that's very important for Los Angeles, because in a big earthquake, we are going to lose a lot of our communication infrastructure, a lot of our power infrastructure. All right. Maybe we can get some publicity. I was contacted, Mark Siegel from up in Sunland, Tahunga. I don't know how somebody from the Daily News got a hold of him, but he turned her loose on me. Hi, you wonder about ham radio? Go talk to this guy. And we went from the subject of ham radio and emergencies to emergency preparedness. And she was kind of surprised at my opinion with regards to the lack of preparedness in the city of Los Angeles. I'm figuring 95% of the people aren't prepared. I asked her how long she had food and water. She figured one day. I said, okay, prime example. I asked her what happens after 3 days when people run out of food and water. She thought that was a good byline of some type. I said, don't quote me, but that is a worry. And she said she'd never thought about that with regards to emergency preparedness. And she has said that she would like to come to some event. I'm not sure what it is, but perhaps we'll invite her here and she'll get an idea of what we're trying to do. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get some honest-to-God publicity for the city of Los Angeles. Okay, we're going to start with Bill. Short comment?
Oh, yeah, very
Okay.
short. October 6, 2018.
October, okay, yeah, there's that. Oh, and by the way, to answer one of your questions, check, yeah, certainly, what do they call the people who take care of the shelters in Los Angeles? Not animal welfare, who are they?
American Red Cross.
No, the Los Angeles group.
Working Parks.
Huh? No, they take care of the...
LASA.
Huh? They take care of the shelters. Huh? Animal control?
Animal services.
Animal Services. Check their website. They're having, maybe this weekend or very shortly, they're having a meeting for your rights as renter with pets.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I saw that online, so I was going to put that in our newsletter. So they may be doing that. Okay,
Hi, Len.
grab the mic so it records.
Hi, as you talk about communications and lack thereof in emergencies, is there any possible way that we can actually contact the media outlets when we are having a disaster, as if the fires or other things, and just kind of remind them that the media say, hey, take a CERT class, do map your neighborhood, because again, people are all listening to the media, radio, TV, and so forth, and that would be a great time to actually say, hey, there's a disaster going on, but let's prepare the future, because that's when people, I think, would probably listen most.
Yeah.
And I don't know who we would contact, if there is a central person who could actually contact all of the media outlets.
His last name is Garcetti. He has an office and a staff, and they do lots and lots with the news media, and perhaps his office would get involved. We need more PSA. Very definitely. That's what we need.
Thank you.
So there we go. Okay, Bob, you'll be next.
Well, I have some rather
Wait a minute.
long.
Hey, Pat,
Up in Sunland.
grab the mic. We're recording.
Up in Sunland, Tahunga on January 20th, I am organizing a emergency preparedness event. It's an all-day event. We will be featuring speakers. We will have booths. It'll be, people from LAFD, the police, the sheriffs, first aid. Bill has offered to come and help, right, Bill?
We'll be there.
We will have somebody from equine preparedness. We have someone on our neighborhood council who is going to talk about providing for animals during an emergency. I've contacted emergency management, but they have not responded as far as coming to our event. Maybe I could put in another request today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the valley or?
Yes,
North.
Northeast
This
Valley.
Saturday.
Okay, let's talk.
Yes.
Follow up with the rest.
Yeah, I'm going to be leaving here at about noon, so I'll give you my card if we're still talking. Thank you.
And can I have my new public safety chair contact you with, for ideas?
One of the people who is involved with this is going to be talking about CERT, yes.
Bob?
I have some rather longer remarks. I'd like to have the
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
He said, really? And I'd like to be able to present them at an appropriate time, which might be now.
No, this is just updates.
Well, as soon as updates are updated, because we're here in December for a reason.
Okay, well, hang on, we'll get into that.
Let me go first.
Bill, something quick?
On
Sorry, I need to-
January 14th.
Bill, turn it back on.
On January 14th, I will be running a simulated disaster for my neighborhood team that operates at what would be CERT Level 3 if LA Fire Department recognized CERT Level 3 as actually being CERT. And it's going to be, if you're interested in seeing it, send me an email. I might let some of you come if you're willing to play a victim. My email is billpope1@verizon.net. I may also run a search and rescue class on the Saturday before that, which would be the 6th, and a medical team class on the Sunday the 7th, which would be an all-day event. The drill will be from 10 to 1 on Sunday the 14th. But I need you to contact me first so I'll know whether I've got slots.
And where's your neighborhood? Where's your neighborhood, Bill?
Mar Vista,
Okay.
near Santa Monica Airport.
And my old stomping grounds from years ago. Okay. What else? Another update which may help with emergency preparedness. A couple of us were contacted by the legislative deputy for our assembly person who is resigning, unfortunately. So it's got to find a new home, but he wanted to talk specifically about something that two of us talked to him about last year when we were in Sacramento on the cell phone ordinance, and that had to do with antennas and the ability to put up antennas in code-restricted areas. People have CCNRs, people have homeowners associations and such. We're not talking about massive towers. We're talking about reasonable type things. So that people who do happen to want to get their ham license and want to practice, we were talking earlier about what we call simplex nets, people being able to check in, like Lake Balboa. That's kind of difficult to do with just a little handheld. You need an outside antenna. So he called us and we had a conference on it. And unfortunately, Assembly person Matt Dababna is resigning at the end of this month. But there's a couple other people from our area that we hope will pick this up when the person we were talking to presents it to them, and then we can continue it on. Because that would be a big help in emergencies.
Anyway,
You should have one in your area.
Yeah, but it moved forward.
Oh,
It's okay, we got it covered.
okay, I got another one.
one of the things that Kat, who is on our neighborhood council, actually told me today, which I thought was really great, is we have people who have FRS radios, and we also have people who have ham radios, and I did not know that you can actually, there's codes from the FRS radios that can actually transform also on the ham, so everyone can be on the same network.
What do you mean?
Well, I know somehow I know she was calling me on her FRS radio, and I could hear it on my ham radio. There's a...
There are some ham radio.
Yeah.
There's a difference between receiving and transmitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only receive, you
You
can't.
can receive
Yeah.
on a whole mess of stuff. Problem with radios like Bofang and Wushan, they skirted the rules to where they actually let you transmit on both of them. They're not type certified or approved by FCC for that use. But the easiest solution is what you just said. Got FRS for local, you've got ham for broader, and now that they've just changed the rules on GMRS to allow differences, you've got some improvement there too.
Yeah, yeah.
Stand corrected, I'm
That's the whole
sorry.
class.
No, that's okay, yeah, you'd be able to receive, my little, that I brought today, my little Kenwood F6, I can actually program it to receive FRS, and it may actually transmit on those frequencies, but you're not supposed to because it's a ham radio. But yeah, I can receive FRS on those if I want to program it in. All right, so those are my updates for some emergency stuff that I'm working on or being contacted about, and we'll see what goes on. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is discussion and possible motions. I'm going to go first to the budgetary things before I go to the Lang thing. I've got up on screen the and I sent out. This is from the department, Empower LA, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. It's under their budget request. What is it? 03, 4703. Let me take it. Yeah, it's under their budget 4703. And last year, you might recall, Dunn and EMD put in a joint motion in their budgets for 4 employees, 2 at the department, 2 at EMD, and they would work together. One would be working outreach, and the others would be working emergency preparedness. Well, this year they said to heck with it, and they're requesting individually. The department is requesting 2, and EMD is requesting 2, they would work with, now we're starting with the one from Dunn, as we sent out, they would work with EMD, with the various neighborhood councils and such as that. There was always a question of money with regards to that. And let me see if I can find the request. And this time they actually included, what's this called? Benefits for these. And I'm trying to find it here.
Glenn,
Yeah.
didn't you send this on your?
Yeah, I sent it out to everybody. I sent it out to everybody. You should have it.
This one?
Yeah,
I didn't see it.
yeah.
I didn't see that
Yeah.
attachment.
It was an attachment.
In the
It was
4
an
attachments? Oh.
Yeah, it was an original attachment.
This is the one you sent out yesterday.
No, this is the one I sent out on Wednesday.
Okay, well, we have a proposed motion that came from Lang.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're starting with the budgetary thing. The Lang one has to do with,
Didn't see that.
yeah, the Lang one has to do with what's it called? Trainers, cert trainers. This is different.
Okay, well, why don't you summarize it? in
Okay,
sentences?
they want one project coordinator type and 1 intern. If I can.
To do outreach to the neighborhood councils and the communities regarding emergency preparedness.
Yeah, okay, here we go. I knew I'd
We
find
talked
it.
about this a year ago.
Right. So what you're looking at is, for this emergency preparedness, and people ask, the total cost with salaries, contractual services, etc., would be $85,989. And then if you add in pension and health, it's an additional $47,846. Now this is for the 2 employees for 9 months. I'm not sure why they throw in a cap rate, but they threw in a cap rate at the same time.
Is that just for EMD or is that for both ends?
No, that is strictly for the department, for Dunn.
For done.
And those 2 persons would work on emergency preparedness outreach and coordination with the neighborhood councils, with the Sustainability Alliance and the various other alliances, And perhaps we would be getting some publicity out of them. They would be, we could talk about that as far as these people producing PSAs and such. But the main thing is they would be working with EMD on Ryland. They'd be working with neighborhood councils on their own preparedness and such as that. A lot of outreach.
Where are you
So-
going with this?
What?
Where are you going with this?
So this is one of the...
Motion to support?
This is one of the motions on the agenda. It says, support done budget request, BM 4703, Neighborhood Council Emergency Preparedness Program. So that is one of the things I think we could support.
You're arguing the motion, you've just given a 10-minute
Okay.
lecture on it.
Okay, I will not argue it. I will not
How
argue
about
it.
some brief discussion?
Okay, I just gave you what it's
Okay.
going to be. Okay. Bob, you'd like to kick it off?
Well, the first thing is that we had this discussion almost a year ago. We supported 4 positions, 2 for Dunn and 2 for emergency management. My only concern is the quality of people that Dunn has hired and sent out to our community. I'm hoping that we will, are these supposed to be new hires?
These would be new hires.
Okay, are we going to have any input, say, whatever, or is this going to be the usual political nonsense?
Well, I'm not sure how we would have input into who gets hired due to the fact that...
All right, so you don't know?
Hang on, no. Due to this would be a civil service position, which means it's got to go through the regular process. That's why it's a 9-month and not a 1 year. But the question would be what their qualifications
Okay,
are.
so we're presumably going to vote this motion, we're going to endorse it. I'm a little concerned as to, for example, wasting their time on Highland, which you know my feelings on that. But, you know, let's get on with it.
What is Dryland?
Or Ryland, the Ready Your LA neighborhood. LA's,
The one that is 100 full inadequate.
Bill?
along with what he's been saying, and it may be an impossible task, but given that these are new hires, yeah, I guess civil service, whatever that involves, but that means there will be some qualifications that will be posted. I think we should have a seat at that determining of what the qualifications should be. We need to be a part of that. If the Neighborhood Council, Emergency Preparedness Alliance, blah, 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 Grassetti, everything else is to mean anything, and we're going to help and propose that this be funded, we ought to be involved in that process. And that means by assisting with the qualifications of the people that they're going to hire. It shouldn't be just left up to them. Whoever them is, by the way.
Okay. I would not disagree with you.
Question, are they for emergency management coordinators position?
No. This is done, not EMD. We haven't gotten to EMD yet.
Okay. What are they hiring for? Is it a project assistant
It's
or
called-
project coordinator?
Project coordinator and an office trainee, which is an intern.
Listen, can I share with you how these positions normally work?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
No,
Okay, go
In
ahead.
terms of the job description, the city personnel department, of course, does their, whatever the validation study is, and they determine what the qualifications are for these. That's a very broad, it's not as specific as emergency management coordinator, but it's a very broad title for project coordinator. So they do their study and they decide what those qualifications could be. And so that particular job description is written pretty broadly because when it gets down to the department level, it's basically project work. So the departments will talk about what the project requirements are, but the personnel department will set what those, the broad requirements are, if that makes sense. And it's the same with the emergency management department. We've had input in the past with personnel in defining what those requirements are, but they pretty much set that. And then when the candidate is interviewed, they talk specifically about that project work, which is actually work that is assigned by the department. And so the departments are looking for candidates that have the experience to work on those very specific projects and initiatives, but it's personnel's department to make sure that those candidates are screened and they meet their qualifications in terms of education and experience level. So anyway, that's just a little bit how that process works. I don't know if that was helpful or not, I hope so.
Yeah,
Question over here.
okay, Bill?
I think it was very helpful. Basically what it says, you hire for the task, not for the job. They want to have someone who's really good at program coordination. Bill Pope has given us quite a description of what's involved in all that. Then it's up to the department to give them a task.
And those tasks are based on goals and objectives, of course, that are set by the mayor in coordination and working with the manager. For example, in our department, we might have a specific, I'm trying to think of some of the projects that we work on, which are many, but those projects are, everything that we work on has to tie back to the mayor's goals and objectives. And so we work very closely with the mayor's office and how we execute those programs and those tasks. So I don't want you to have I used to believe that departments did whatever they wanted to do, but when I used to work on a budget back in another department, I learned that everything you do is metricized, if that's an actual word, and it has to tie back to those broad objectives that are set by the mayor's office. And if they're not, of course there's accountability, but especially in our department, the things that we work on, we work closely with the mayor's Homeland Security folks and the mayor's office of I forget what it's called MOPS. But everything is based on metrics in terms of reporting. But what is it called? Public safety. But yeah, it's those specific tasks relate back to broader objectives and broader goals. And it's okay. But that's with most organizations as well.
Okay, if,
Can I ask a question?
go ahead, Bill.
Okay. I'd like to know your opinion. This is intro to a comment I want to make, but I'd like to know would EMD's opinion be of another organization bringing up people to deal with emergency preparedness and emergency management?
I really couldn't answer that question because you'd have to talk to the general manager. And it would,
What's your personal opinion?
well, my personal opinion is that it would be up to the general manager. I think that EMD takes a look at a myriad of approaches when it comes to executing the mayor's goals and objectives. Our general manager, he has just done a phenomenal job, I think, in the short time that he's been here. And he really is our shepherd. He's guiding things. So,
Okay,
have you
if,
met Aram? So, Aram Sahakian. So,
Then let me make my comment. My comment is, I believe in a chain of command. And as an example of how we do not have a chain of command today, a couple weeks ago, or a week or so ago, I sent some questions to the Emergency Management Department asking, does the city have a plan for providing 4 million gallons of water per day to city residents when the San Andreas moves and severs the 3 aqueducts coming that bring 88% of our water in? The answer I got back was, you need to talk to Department of Water and Power. And I said another question, does the city have a plan for providing natural gas or fuel for heating people's homes when the Newport-Inglewood fault rips through the middle of the city, severing all of the underground pipelines, water and gas? You need to talk to Southern California Gas. Question 3, does the city have a plan? Okay. Can the city tell me?
okay, Bill, your point.
My point is, I went to the organization that I would think has control and should have the knowledge of how all this stuff's gonna work. And I was learned that it doesn't, that you have to go to all these other organizations to find out. My concern is that this proposal, again, fragments the chain of command of who should be in charge of planning and implementing emergency preparedness and emergency response. I think that this ought to be in their department, and they provide the resources to go out to work with the neighborhood councils.
Okay.
My comment.
Let me comment for, let me comment, okay? The project, okay, number one, having worked for government for 35 years, yes, I know how those hiring requirements are set out, and they're set out by not the department that's going to hire, but by the personnel department, which can be a problem. But according to the department's budget request, they want these people to work in collaboration with EMD to conduct outreach to neighborhood councils, etc., with regards to emergency preparedness. They want to work with us too, okay? They want to implement an emergency bin program for neighborhood councils that want them. And they want to create emergency communication plan within the city that involves neighborhood councils as well as other agencies of the city. So what they want to do is, their project is to work with EMD, with apparently the fire department and ACS, et cetera, to do some of the things that we've been looking to do and we've been promoting. So that's within the description of the project. So, as was said, the personnel department will set up the general parameters of the hiring, who can apply. And then at the interviews with regards to the hiring, you've got X number of people who qualify. I don't know whether there's going to be an exam, a written exam, or if it's just,
there will always be an exam
okay.
of some sort.
But there's also going to be a personnel interview.
Correct.
And at that personnel interview, they will be talking about these specific goals. And people will be expected to answer how they would help implement these goals, or what they might know about implementing these goals. And then the final hiring decision comes with the department itself. That's what we used to do in the DA's office, okay?
And that's the same today, Leonard, it hasn't changed.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. I mean, when I went for my interview, I interviewed for the DA, the public defender, and the county council all at the same time. And it depended on whose questions you answered the best as to who would offer to hire you, you know, so that's the way it will go. So we're going to start way back.
Sherry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Sherry Darrahanian, Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, soon to be on the Granada Hills South Neighborhood Council. Okay, just from my 4-month versus 2 years experience dealing with all those agencies from the federal, state, county, city on down, this is the problem in any government agency and any big problem like emergency preparedness. When, let's say there's 20 of us in here, and I like Mr. Pope's question where he said, who's going to provide the water? Who's going to provide the gas? Who's going to provide the electricity? Every citizen in this country, in this county and city should know the answer. Not even people in our room know the answer. Not even one person in City Hall knows the answer. I work for a multi-million-dollar Fortune 500 company, blah, 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 and do you know, from the receptionist up to the CEO of the company and the board of directors, whatever the problem is, the receptionist knows and the CEO knows the answer. So let's take a lesson from private sector and get our stuff together. And I don't care who the coordinator is, but they better be somebody like me who just wants to organize it and get it together and A, B, C, D, E, here's all the solutions. This isn't rocket science. We're not getting fuel to the, you know, Mars. Okay, it's just fixing a bunch of like 5 questions that he asked. Thank you.
I think all of us are thinking the same thoughts. But, so once again, this gentleman over here, Oh, I'm Gwendolyn Henry from Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council. I'm sitting in for our emergency preparedness, our safety, public safety person, Melanie LeBrac, who cannot come because she's part of the budget advocacy.
Gwendolyn from where?
San Pedro?
San Pedro, next door to Bob.
Northwest.
Yes, northwest.
Vicky Pink.
Bob's our neighbor. Nonetheless, in regards to, after all that, so these two roles for Dunn. It would be, as this gentleman had mentioned, I believe we should have some input on what their responsibilities will be, since we are the people that they will be serving for information. And I believe that as far as their role should be, it should be action in giving us the information and collecting that and going to the different departments so that we can come up with a binder and have that information, and be able to distribute it. CERT training, CPR training, who to go to, and we can start organizing these events ourselves, because our role as neighborhood council is to get the pertinent information to our community right on the ground. And this is really, really important. Eric Garcetti wants this to happen. And so we do need to have that back and forth in order to make this happen.
I know you've probably heard this suggestion before, but I would strongly suggest two things. Have my general manager come to a meeting next year to address a lot of these questions. The answers that you got are answers that I've never heard before, but have him address that question. And in terms of this gentleman's question about how does EMD feel about other agencies working for them or bringing other projects or programs to them, I do know that we occasionally do get funding from the mayor's office for different projects and programs, as we've done with our latest, this emergency management has entered into, several contractual agreements with different organizations, companies, people that provide goods and services, and it's through, as you know, a bidding process. So EMD personally doesn't have any, to my knowledge, any barriers or objections to other organizations bringing projects, services, products to the table if there is a grant. And we are able to write, release a grant, and we get bids, as we've done for many things, but it's just a matter of two things. Maybe we could be better at this, notifying you when we have grant opportunities. I don't think we do the best job that we can. And then if there's any way that we can clear up any questions or problems regarding the specific requirements and the deliverables of the grants, what the objectives are, we can do that as well. So I personally can say that we could probably do a better job in communicating how you get access to these opportunities, where they're posted, remind you of deadlines, because we don't have any kind of surplus money to do things that are outside of the grant, the contractual process, the request for proposal process. So maybe that's something that we can work on. I don't know what our plans are in 2018 for other request for proposal opportunities that we might have, but I can certainly check and let you know when those opportunities are open, and if you want to bid for those, and we have various meetings where people can come in and get more information, that's one way. So that's maybe where we can do a better job. And if Aram, our general manager, knows of other opportunities that might be in the city that could be under the mayor's department, maybe we can take a look at what opportunities the mayor has, contractual services opportunities. Maybe we can communicate those to you as well, because they have their division where they work specifically with Homeland Security and public safety, and we may be collaborating with them, but in terms of where the money is, it's in the mayor's office. So maybe that's something that Leonard and I can talk to Aram about. But Certainly have him come and address this group, sometime next year is probably a good idea.
Okay.
Was RM the one that came in January or February, our first meeting?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, okay, I will tell you that I wasn't ignoring what you were saying, I was sending myself a note. I will be querying staff at at the commission meeting on Monday with regards to having input into the hiring process. We can't be there when it's, when the questions are being asked, but at least perhaps we can tell them what some of the questions would be. So.
And the job description.
Well, the job description is already laid out. That's it. It's a broad description. It's a broad description, but, there may be some specifics that we should know about. Okay, briefly.
This is brief. I have a specific question. Didn't we talk about this in, January or February at our first meeting when Arm Sahakian came out?
No, this was, we had a discussion last year with regards to another request.
Okay, but when Gracie Lou came and there's like 2 jobs, 40,000.
Yeah, that was 2 and 2, and that was a joint request.
Right. But what month was that? Do you remember?
It was maybe, it's been a year ago.
Okay, well, why have they, and I know this is a dumb question, why are they so slow? Just hire someone.
Why? Okay.
Don't answer that.
Just
don't go into that.
I'm going to explain. I will explain very, very briefly. The powers that be did not include it in the budget.
Oh, I
That's
got
all.
it, I got it, thank you.
So this is another budget request. So that's where the department's request is right now. Is they want these 2 people, and this is what they want them for. We've all been crying about emergency bins, so that's one of the things they included. They'd be working with EMD with regards to their new Ryland project and coordinating with neighborhood councils, and they would be working on getting neighborhood councils into the communication system in Los Angeles, and then I presume would be communicating with ACS and such as that. With the ham radio. That's my assumption. That would be communication. But basically, it's to help neighborhood councils organize for emergency preparedness. So that's really the broad parameters. Whether they'll let us come up with questions about, what some of the specific qualifications might be when they do the interviews, I'll ask. I mean, that's the one advantage. I can ask them that question during the GM's report or any other time during our meeting, which I'll do.
20 minutes talking about
Okay.
this.
So,
Are we going to vote to endorse
well, that's okay.
this, which we did a year ago?
Okay, that becomes the question. Do we wish to endorse this request by the department, this formally emergency preparedness Neighborhood Council Emergency Preparedness Program? So that's the question. Somebody want to make a motion? It's been moved. It's been seconded. I don't think we have any further discussion. Those in favor of supporting it, please so signify.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
To clarify, you talked about EMD, you haven't talked about EMD.
Okay, that's a separate budget. They have a separate budget item.
So right now, the motion on the floor is for 2 people for done only.
That's right. Then I'll talk about EMD.
No. I'm going to object to that.
Or you want me to talk about EMD?
No, I won't talk.
Which is, no, do you know what their proposal is?
I don't give a damn.
I do.
Okay. This meeting has been operating under the assumption that everything is just fine, and that maybe we need a little trimming around the edges. We'll get 2 more people for done, etc. In the meanwhile, 4 million people in Los Angeles are totally ignorant of the idea of emergency preparedness. The idea that I proposed for this meeting a month ago was that we actually take some positions and get something started.
That's what we're
I would like to speak on that, and it's almost 11:30. Okay? If I sound frustrated, it's because I'm frustrated, and I believe that several of us are also.
So, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll abandon the agenda and bring you up here, Bob.
Thank you.
Agenda's abandoned, we're not going to vote on any of these today.
Okay, that's fine by me.
Okay? have no idea.
Okay.
By the way, those of you who want to vote on anything, let me know.
You got a mic in your head.
Okay?
I'm not against voting. I'm against wasting time month after month and not doing anything. Okay. I've spoken about this before. What I did was take a series of discussions and proposals and agreements that we have made over the course of the last nearly 2 years. And it's about time we did something about it. One of the proposals was that there be outreach to neighborhood councils and that there be training at neighborhood councils, and that we can do that ourselves or with help or with volunteers or by hiring Bill or something like that, but we need to get started. 2 years have gone by. Luckily, we haven't had a big earthquake, but we could have a big earthquake day after tomorrow or next year, 6 months from now. And it would be useful if there were some preparation and training. So I wrote these little pieces. Most of it is just a summary of discussions we've had already, which is, I think that there should be a finding. There should be a report. NCEPA, that's us. We find that residents of the city of LA are woefully unprepared, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking about a major earthquake. I think the brush fires are adequately handled by the organizations that already exist. If they're not adequately handled, it's because brush fires are so big and uncontrollable. But in terms of an earthquake, we don't have the equivalent of a fire department that's going to go out there and cut brush and aerial tankers and so on. We have nothing. My neighborhood council, the only time we've talked about it is when I get up and talk about it as a member of this alliance. So the first finding is that the people of LA are woefully unprepared. I've underlined a few parts myself. I mean, 10 of these, I handed like one out for each table. What concerns neighborhood council emergency preparedness is the city government and its agencies have failed to develop a comprehensive approach to public education, et cetera, regarding emergency preparedness. We've developed the beginning of such an approach, and we intend to develop a public education program as follows, which is to say we will talk to neighborhood councils and every other organization that we can talk to, and so on. The next part is that the city spends a lot of money and has a lot of agencies that do their own emergency preparedness, and I've been generally pretty impressed with what I've heard. Recon Parks is the example I use. They have a whole thing. Now, how many of us knew anything about what Recon Parks' plan was before we came to this meeting? We didn't. I didn't know anything about it. The people, the 27,000 people in my neighborhood council don't know anything about it. The 70,000 people in the whole of San Pedro don't know anything about it, period. The public are entirely ignorant. I'll just review what Bill said when he asked those questions. These are questions that we have a right to at least consideration of. Where's the water going to come from? Do we have water that is sited around the city of LA? Well, I don't know. I don't think so. Nobody's told me. Do we have emergency medical supplies, etc.? Next thing is we brought up the issue of CERT training. We have discussed the fact that the last time anybody talked in a meeting here, there were four count them, CERT trainers in the city of LA. And there's an argument about the fire department controlling who has the ability to create CERT trainers and give the CERT classes. It's time that we put a stop to this bullshit.
Yeah.
There's 4 million people in the city of LA. How many of them do you want CERT trained? Just give me an answer. Give me a number. Give me a number. If you can't give me a number, then you're unprepared. Okay, 400,000 is a pretty good number, you know.
For $1 million.
Uh,
Want them all trained.
$1 million is a really good number. How are we going to train them? How many CERT trainers does that take? How many classes? Okay.
How many languages?
Yeah.
Okay. These are the sorts of questions that come up in the first day in freshman physics. It's just called let's do an estimate. And we learned it, and everybody's talking about how Enrico Fermi used to do. He would ask a class, how many piano tuners are there in the city of Chicago? And they would figure out pretty accurately, just on basic
So,
principles.
let me ask a question. How do you, tell us how you want to accomplish this.
Well, first of all, you can take this report and you can say, we as the NCEPA pass this as a report and we submit it to the city of LA. It's full of complaints. It's full of inadequacies, what they have not done. I have a couple of other little proposals, one of which I did in City Watch, which was, okay, Ready LA. The question I asked was, how many groups of 15 or 30 houses are there in the city of LA? And therefore, how many volunteers do we need to go out and do the Map Your Neighborhood Ready LA? Okay, it's a back of the envelope calculation. That's the number that I came up with at the time. Anybody remember? About 80,000. You know, take 4 million, divide it by 100, and that's a lot. You know, that's 40,000. So until somebody can tell me differently, I'm not impressed with Ready LA. I'm particularly unimpressed with the fact that the city government, from the mayor and the city council on down, aren't really talking about it. And it would take a big public relations campaign to tell people, you got to go out and do it. In addition, it requires a particular kind of person, and a very extroverted person who really understands, and in a neighborhood that is amenable to this sort of thing, which my neighborhood probably is not. And, you know, I'm willing to do it, and I'm willing to bring up Ready LA, Ready Your LA at my neighborhood council and other neighborhood councils. And 3 years from now, I suspect that we will be pretty much in the same place we were before. I think that we'll have a couple of thousand such neighborhoods done. Okay, so my proposal is a couple of things. I've also added the one additional item, the one that I think is the most tendentious, which is, I refer to it as walk to the corner, which is after the shaking stops and we've had a big earthquake, everybody will understand that you can walk to the main corner and there will be somebody, perhaps a neighborhood council volunteer with an FRS radio. And that way, there will be a way of communicating injuries, damage, fires, whatever. And whether the city is able to deal with those injuries is another question. I raised the issue a few months ago about, well, somebody with a broken femur, that's potentially lethal, but treatable sorts of things. Lots of broken femurs happen. People survive them. They get operated on. I have a close relative who had one. Okay. So I suggest that we tell the city to stop screwing around with, you can't give out radios to people to take home. It's the most ridiculous idea, and we keep hearing it. And whenever somebody says, well, okay, let's just buy a bunch of FRS radios and we'll get together and we'll train people. Well, you can't do that because the rule is the neighborhood council. They have to be held in a particular place. Maybe we can pass a rule that the governing board can have. No, we need more than the governing board, obviously. So cut the red tape. It's not all that hard. That's my proposal.
Can I ask a quick question regarding the proposal? Because can you hear me? Okay. What's the cost of the funding proposal that you have? Do you have a bottom line cost and line item description of what it will cost to enact a proposal? Because I'm curious, because if there is a a request for proposal that's going to be let in the near future, and you've got somebody who's ready to jump in and do it, maybe there's a way to get that information to you. It's open bid process, of course, but if there's a bottom line dollar amount that's going to cost with some detail, and because people are not going to do this for free, and so there's got to be, like I said, the city does fund certain projects based on, you know, all those funding sources that they get. If there's a way to make a match, we can talk offline. I know you have this agenda you need to go through, and I'm saying far too much, but I want to be helpful in some way. And if there is a request for proposal coming down the pipe that is a good fit, you should be able to throw your hat in the ring and get this funded.
I may not be as familiar with administrative talk. We're not talking a lot of money. We're talking about rules. For example, my neighborhood council has about $30,000 left to spend. We could easily spend $3,000 on the radios. We can easily train people to use them for nothing. I can train them for nothing. What we need to do is to have a meeting where we have all the ACS people and the ham radio people and total amateurs who are going to be teaching total amateurs what we're going to do with FRS and what the information is useful for, if it's useful at all. If it's not useful and we're just going to leave people to die on the street, then that's different.
I think part of what he's trying to explain, at least this is my vision, is this is not a proposal, this is not an RFP. This is what the city is responsible for doing, just like it is their job to pick up our trash and to fix our streets. This is protecting the citizens of Los Angeles. It should not be anything that an RFP should go out, a group should be formed, an organization should do it. It already exists, it's called the City of Los Angeles. And they should be behind us 1,000%, period. Not if, and or budget. Find the money because it's there. Eliminate some of these, what could easily be called ridiculous rules from some stand. I understand the reason for accountability. We're all neighborhood councils. We see what's involved in that. But some of the ideas that we can't stock an emergency preparedness bin because, gee, it might have some body bags in it, and that bothers the attorney for liability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to, you know, either you're going to save our butts or you aren't. When you talk about liability, what is the liability to the city when no one comes to save you? And they told us no one's coming to save us.
Zero.
You know what?
That's the liability.
You know
Should
what?
be the same for the stuff that they provide.
Instead of waiting on an RFP, like in our neighborhood council, we just have like a group. We were deciding on one day a month, and if anyone has an FRS, I just got one like last week, and we are having, like, instead of waiting for the city to do something, as someone in your neighborhood council, just set up a time, and if anyone has an FRS and is interested, they can just reach out to you. I do a lot of work in homelessness, and I'm not waiting for the city to do anything, because they're not. So, because it's in a neighborhood council, you should be responsible and have your own teams start talking and then talking to other neighborhood councils. Like we just had one this morning. We just had one this morning, like an impromptu Saturday morning at 9 a.m., turn on channel 15, and then we're going to do a broad Facebook thing being like, regardless of frequency, instead of just sitting here complaining for an RFP, do something about it. You're in your neighborhood. You can. FRSs are really cheap, and you can have we have so many social media tools out there, like Facebook and Nextdoor, and just do something about it instead of just like, while we're waiting on the city, why don't we do something like grassroots? It's not hard, and it's not expensive.
Are we taking turns?
Yes, we are. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm going to raise my hand after you get your
Just
question
jump in.
answered.
Go ahead.
Well, I suggest that we take these concerns and turn it into more of an actionable document. And in regards to, for example, the ham radio situation, I have reservations for people in the community being given ham radios because...
No, FRS radio.
Okay.
You don't give out ham radio.
Okay.
FRS is what?
Because you don't want to
Family
contaminate.
radio service.
Yeah, you don't
Well,
want to
Kentucky,
contaminate.
it's the music.
They have their license and stuff.
Yeah.
I understand you have it.
Okay, yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue
once again, I suggest we take this into, that each person take this home and try to create more of an actionable document out of it rather than just, you know, I mean, I know that you have actions in here, but perhaps construct it so that it puts the actions and what the concerns are, so it's a little more readable.
We can do that as a group.
Yeah.
It's fine by me. I want us to stop talking and actually do something.
But I wanted to concur with her. I actually spoke to the governor's office of emergency services just this last week. I spoke to 2 different people. And to give you guys some reassurances, I mean, there's an overall huge statewide emergency services and response thing. And you can actually, I've been starting to figure out where it comes from the top down. And yes, it seems really, really freaking disorganized when you get to the city level. And it is our responsibility to take our own responsibility. And yes, we are on the ground and we are going to be dealing with, for the first 24 hours, because nobody's going to be there.
No.
We can't ask, you know, the city to come to us like, you know, cleaning the trash. We're going to have to pick up our own freaking trash. And so, you know, we should, in this group, start inspiring people to do those things and take action. And that's where I think these roles should say, you know, we come up with a plan for these done people to be able to go to the neighborhood council and start saying, these are the things that you need to do. And you start getting ideas, and then everybody else can take it from there.
No, behind you first. Bill?
Yeah.
Bill?
Conrad.
Right behind.
I think it's a good idea to release a report, I think, to the media as well. You know, just put some fire under the people who might be able to make a difference. I would suggest that we add some language about sanitation, because that, if we are all going to be responsible for disposing of human waste and dealing with bodies and the like, in reviewing all of the materials on the web that I have reviewed, I have not seen much attention given to that component of the,
I think this is part of the proposed training. I didn't include Bill Pope's whole document, because we already have it.
Sure.
We already have it. If you don't,
but if you're talking about
get
failure of water delivery, electricity delivery, sewage, I would just tack on sanitation and trash pickup, a lot of which is done by private companies in Los Angeles.
And yeah, and if the roads are all closed and there's no electricity and no gasoline, it's not going to happen. We do understand that. The issue is, do the people of Los Angeles understand any of this? And the argument is, no, they don't. And we've understood that point from perhaps the first 15 minutes of these meetings. It's time we did something. I'd just like to respond to you. There's a great book that was written about 30 years ago. It's by Charles Rimbaud. It's called The Law of the Land. And he points out that the first duty of the sovereign, the government, the authority, is to protect the public safety. And this includes, by the way, things like, you know, smallpox vaccinations and food and water. So when we talk about things like Ready Your LA, it's like we're all going to go out and form a volunteer police force. No, we've gone beyond that. We have a professional police force. We're going to have volunteer fire departments. They do have those in some parts of the United States. We have a professional police department. If we're going to do this community organizing, well, gosh darn, all those staffers who work for the local city councilman and work for Dunn and stuff like that, how come they're not out there organizing neighborhoods? They're coming to
Not in the job description.
they're coming to our neighborhood council meetings and violating the rules, the laws. That's what they do. Okay. So there it is. Yes, I typed this quickly. It can be redone. Everybody can use editing. Every document can use editing. If you like, we can have a regional meeting in San Pedro where we go over this, but I would like something serious to come out of it. And I want us, as this alliance, to tell the city, hey, you have failed us, you know. And the fact is, Eric Garcetti brought in Lucy Jones. That was a great move forward, and Lucy Jones reported. And that was a great move forward, and now it's time to do something.
So can we put some dates on the review period? Sorry to jump in. A month? By next meeting? Written comments to you by email for you to summarize by next meeting or a week before so we can review comments? What do you suggest?
Well, with all due respect,
we can pass the motions, including the Lank motion, which we just changed to Neighborhood Council Emergency Preparedess Alliance instead of Los Angeles Neighborhood Council Coalition. I already scratched in on that. You have that in front of you, I believe. We can pass the motion asking that Dunn get the funding and that the emergency preparedness authorities get their people. These are kind of no-brainers. I think it's realistic to talk about, well, are we going to have the people that we all know at Dunn, or are we going to have somebody who's actually going to do this seriously and competently? And what is that job? Is that person going to come down and educate me in how to teach this class to my neighborhood council? Are they going to put funding into preparing the materials? Is Bill going to get a fair shot at doing his approach instead of CERT? Are we going to review the whole idea of CERT? And how could we do it in 3 hours instead of 17? All this sorts of things.
Okay. It still comes down to, if you want to have people go into the community rather than volunteers and organize, who's going to pay for them? And how are you going to pay for them? And what is it going to cost to pay for them? That's a question. You asked about emergency food. Yes, there is a provision, I believe it's called the mega contracts, that have been arranged for 2 companies to come in and deliver food and water even before FEMA gets here. And by the way, forget about 24 hours. Start thinking about 7 days. Don't even talk about 24 hours because they aren't going to come to you in 24 hours if you live in a low-density area like a single-family neighborhood. It's going to be somewhere between 7 and 10 days before you see anybody from emergency services. Maybe as long as 2 weeks, I don't know. And what about the tunnel that brings water? If it's moved 15 feet and separated, maybe it only takes 6 months to correct. If it's moved 36 feet, maybe it takes a year before we correct that. Don't know. I don't know what the capacity of our local reservoirs are, how many days those will supply water. The problem becomes, if the pipes aren't working, if they're gone, how are you going to get water? I'll ask a quick question. How many people here have at least 55 gallons of water at their house? We got a great group here. How many have emergency?
How many people have a water heater tank at their house?
Oh, yeah.
There's your 50 gallons.
Okay. How many people have emergency power at their house?
How many people have a house?
Yeah.
I have an apartment.
Right?
I have an apartment.
Okay,
I have emergency
I don't know.
power. I have water.
Yeah. So the thing is, but I don't disagree with Bob. I think the city has
Let
done.
me ask you
wait
one
a minute,
question.
wait a minute.
Okay, sorry.
I think the city has done and is doing a very poor job at the present time, okay? I think that these 2 budgetary requests, actually these 3 budgetary requests, are a good start, okay? Because they're specifically aimed at what we've been talking about, is getting people aware, hopefully, getting people aware of what they've got to do. I've only seen the draft of the EMD, I haven't seen the final, but part of their proposal is they want 4 people, they want them to work first on Ryland, they want them to work with neighborhood councils, they want them to work with Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, They want to coordinate with the people that we want to work with to get these things done. I'll disagree with Bob. I think, yes, it's going to take volunteers to get neighborhoods organized. And if you only organize 2,000 neighborhoods of 20 homes, okay, that's all you've organized, but that's better than zero. Right now, the city has about, let me see, I think the department says 34 emergency plans throughout the city, something like that.
I don't know.
I can't remember the number.
Let me jump in here, okay?
But no, so
What do you mean, no, no?
as I say, I don't
There's
disagree.
a response to what you
Okay.
just said. I went to a couple of engineering schools. I didn't do engineering, I did math, I did chemistry, I did biochemistry. But when you hang around MIT and Caltech, you learn a couple of things. One is that you analyze what is the problem, you define it, and then you think about how to deal with the problem. And if the current proposal is inadequate, which I think I've shown in numerous articles in City Watch and here, and nobody really disagrees with me. It's inadequate. 2,000 neighborhoods multiplied by 10, that's 20,000 people. Multiplied by 30, that's 60,000 people. That's not a lot of people in a city of 4 million or a county of 12 million. Okay, we ought to consider what is the issue, what is the problem, and how would we go about solving it. This is not the solution. That does not mean that there is no solution. There could be a solution. What we're getting is what I refer to as the miracle happens scenario. Here's the problem, here's the goal, and in between is, and then a miracle happens. It's the famous.
10 minutes left. before
Okay.
Okay.
Then what we need is, okay.
Well, we've just
Bill?
spent 2 years, and it's about time that we got something done.
Bill?
Yes, let me support this. We're still missing the real problem. The real problem is if you don't prepare the entire city, the civil unrest will become so bad, people are going to be shooting other people for water and food. All right? We've got to make this city spend the money to educate the public through public announcements, newspaper ads. But before we do that, we need to agree on what is the program. And right now, CERT is not the program that we need to be pushing to make everybody go spend 7 weeks to learn about incident command and all that stuff. We need to figure out a program that will educate people to how to take care of themselves in a time frame that they will commit to attend. And that's the seminar that I built for you guys, all right? Something like that. Then you need to think about a program that is better than CERT for dealing with those people who are seriously injured and the hospitals aren't taking people because the doctors can't get in and they're destroyed and their people are injured. But we've got to make the city spend the money to educate the people to the program we agree on.
Suppose we say.
I suggest that
I'd like to add on that, if I may,
My
real
last
quick.
comment is, because even though the emergency management department, the group I would think should have the answers to where's the water going to come from, where's the food going to come from, do the cell phone companies, have they implemented the battery backups on all the towers? They were ordered to do so 10 years ago. They don't have the answers, but they're going to give me the contacts. And before the next meeting, I will contact DWP, Southern California Gas Company, and all the cell phone providers in the city and see if I can get answers to those questions.
I suggest
And report on it at the next meeting.
I suggest that that's a really great preamble to Bob's comments and possibly to put that as the beginning of this other document, which I think we should just make more easily readable for city councils and the high mucky mucks.
Yeah, Len?
I'd also like to say something
everyone
on
else?
this, if I may, and that is, I think we also need to not just talk to us, but from what I see a lot of times, that we need to have people who are going to be receptive to this as well, because how many people do we know who have nothing? They have zero water, they have zero emergency water, zero CPR, and even basic first aid training. And not only from the top, we need to go back down on the grassroots and get our average citizen to want to have this training, because that's really important. I offer free training all the time, and I have people who just don't want to take it. So I think we have to figure out a way to market ourselves to the average person who wants to be part of whatever training, whether it's CERT or 5 steps or map their neighborhood. They all have their advantages. But the thing is, we need to get just the average person to want to learn these things.
Hey, Len, what's 1/10 of 1% of the city's current annual budget? I would suggest that that would be a pretty low number to spend on emergency preparedness. And when you do that, or 0.2 of 1%, well, that's your $12 million right now.
Bob, we're trying to get them to spend about...
No, you're trying to.
Okay.
I'm trying to get them to spend an adequate amount of money, and I'm trying to define what is that.
Okay, well, what is that? You define it.
Well, okay, let's talk about it. How much more money does this department that we're sitting in right now need?
To do what?
Well, you are the one who's raised that issue. And for example, having people here 24 hours a day if we need them.
I don't know what it would cost to have OT for somebody to be on call 24/7 for this department. I don't
is
know.
that an important goal to have? If it's not, forget it. If it is an important goal, then let's ask what the number is.
You would have to ask.
Okay.
You would
Here
have.
we have 10,000.
Bob,
Yeah.
you would have to ask the people that make the budget for this department. There are certain people who do it. They would have the figure as to what it would cost for 24/7 standby to be able to activate this one person who's 24/7 or a series of people 24/7. Okay, because if you're quote on duty, in other words, you're on call and ready to go, you have to be paid for that. All right. I don't know what that figure is. I know the figures that they've put in for what the cost of certain people are that they're asking for to work specifically on EP, okay? That's in their budget request. I can tell you what those figures are, okay? But I can't tell you other figures because I'm not part of their budget process. I don't know what their people cost. So, and I don't know if $12 million will be sufficient to do everything that you want to do, okay? I don't know. That's a good question. I think that the city...
And that's a 12 that isn't even in the budget.
I know.
Right now. So,
Emergency...
you know,
Okay.
if we are at all serious about emergency preparedness, because we are willing to admit that there might be the big earthquake, not that there definitely will be, but there might be sometime in our lifetimes.
Do we have time to do your versions?
Yeah, I'm about to. Okay, here's what I'm going to say, okay?
We already had a set.
I'm really, okay, okay, nice discussion, but we can sit down and send the city Bob's proposal and say, okay, you're doing a terrible job, get your butts in gear and do better. Or we can do that and at the same time say to them, well, by the way, here's a place to start. If you're going to commit, here are some figures for you. Here's one figure. $85,000 for the department plus the benefits. For EMD, and I've only got the draft, it would be for before emergency management coordinator ones. EMC ones is what they want to hire.
That's this department?
That's this department. This department right here.
Is that what you are?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Why do we need more, I mean, that's what her job is.
No.
There are 4 of them, 1 per bureau.
One per bureau. They want 4 people to specifically work on emergency preparedness.
What do you do if not emergency preparedness?
I do a myriad of things in the office, from doing
She
public...
does lots.
They're overstretched. From public outreach to working on exercises, staffing various events that the city has, writing, requests for proposals for contracts, those kinds of things. But I do spend a lot of time in the field, giving presentations during the day, in the evening, I work weekends, so, but every bureau has.
You're wanting money for implementers.
Okay,
So I'm just one person
Yeah.
for the Central Bureau.
I'm sorry.
But what they're asking is 4 persons to support, develop, and sustain citywide community preparedness, outreach and neighborhood emergency plans, and exercises using the city's new Ryland, that's the new one. And I don't know how many of your neighborhood councils have had specific exercises in preparedness, but apparently that's one of the things that these people are going to be doing. So that's the description. These people will be dedicated to EP is what they'll be dedicated to, from what I've been reading.
Could we have a presentation on Ryland next meeting?
It should be done by then, shouldn't it?
Let me check with Aaron and find out when that
But
presentation.
we have,
I think Faye did a presentation.
they did a presentation.
No, we had one a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
It was,
She did.
That was
But-
back in your neighborhood.
No, it was, it was.
Is it the same?
it was Ryland.
It's the same
Same.
thing.
It's-
Map Your
it's-
Ryland is the umbrella program, and Map Your Neighborhood is the planning tool that we use.
And
Would you send him for distribution to us a description of this thing?
Sure.
All right, so we
Just
know
keep in
what
mind
we're
that
talking about.
Map Your Neighborhood is being used by the city of Los Angeles as their planning tool.
Now, I want the details of
Right.
what the program is. What are you training people to do? What are the presentations?
Okay, we're not training, the only training that we're going to be doing is the Map Your Neighborhood training. We provide recommendations of other things you can do. For example, one of the recommendations is personal preparedness and family preparedness, preparedness in transit. The second will be organizing your neighborhoods and doing the Map Your Neighborhood. That's one of it. Another thing is we recommend people get some kind of exercise training, whether you do it through CERT, or we can recommend, various other programs, CPR, first aid. We're also recommending that people exercise their plans once a year. I'm trying to think of some of the other elements, but it's an overall program. Communication.
Are we going to take up the motion?
Yeah, let's take a
No, I'm sorry, that's the.
I would propose that we take up the motion
Communication.
unless
Let me
there's,
finish. That's a good point. We're going to be recommending that people subscribe to Notify LA as a direct source of getting information regarding emergencies and disasters. That's going to be a huge part of us recommending that's part of the Ryland program, is being in communication with the city through Notify LA. Also, social media is going to be a huge part of it. And I know a lot of us are not into social media, but that's going to be a huge part of Ryland, getting people engaged in social media, creating Facebook groups, working, being connected to Twitter and to Facebook to get information from the city. But in terms of the hard dollar cost that we're funding under the Ryland program will be the materials that we use for Map Your Neighborhood. Those are the hard dollar costs right now for the program. We don't have any other hard dollar costs because we're not providing, training on how to do CPR or first aid. We're not doing any of that. We want people to have that as part of their preparedness arsenal and tool, if that makes sense.
Okay, how are you going to disseminate that plan to the public?
We are going to be disseminating it through the proposal that Lynn's talking about. We have staff members that are going to go out and speak to neighborhood councils, community groups. We're going to do, hopefully, in part 2, we hope to be able to get some, funding to do some advertising. A lot of it will be Facebook advertising to promote people to, go onto our website, request materials, how they can map their neighborhoods, and then also talk to them about other ways that they can prepare, because we want to also make sure that people are personally prepared. Go ahead.
Do you
Thank
have data?
Now it makes sense.
Do you have people as feedback on that website?
Yes, yes, the website hasn't even gone up yet, but there will be a place where people can provide comment.
Yeah. Hopefully you can actually ask this group to play around with the website and.
You know what, you make a good suggestion, because I know they're going to be doing, let me talk to Kate, our communications person. They haven't started it yet, so I'll ask her if there's a way.
Because we have a good focus group here, and it can also, again, we can be the grounds for disseminating
Can I
it
get
to
your
other.
card before I leave? And I'll talk to Kate about that. That's great.
Okay,
All right, I know.
one last.
Very brief.
I would like to know some of what the city did plan through the Lucy Jones report that was like 2 years ago. And I would like to get a hard copy if possible.
Well, the two major plans are, well, the major plan is retrofitting. One retrofitting soft story, and the other is retrofitting brittle concrete construction. Okay, those are the two plans that they have.
Was that it?
Yeah, you've got to go back on soft story, which are those apartment houses that have the little post that you park under and it supports the story above.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, that has to be, and what they call brittle concrete, which means concrete buildings. Okay, and you've got 25 years to do that.
Google resilience by design.
Yeah.
That's the name of the
I
plan.
realize it's online, but when it's a large document, I like to have a hard copy.
Okay, that's, well, yeah, and that's about what they've done. All right, let me ask you a question. We have 4 proposals. I know Bill's comment about CERT. My comment is something is better than nothing. Let's start somewhere. If they start spending money, maybe we'll get them into the habit of spending money. What do we want to do with these 3 proposals?
Okay, now that she's cleared up, brought it all together, it now makes sense for Dunn to have 4 people to implement what they are planning.
No. They will have 4 people. Dunn will have 2.
Okay,
Yeah,
we need the implementers.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think that we should take up the Dunn and the emergency operations motion first.
Okay, let's take up.
Then we have this other motion that we can also consider.
Okay,
I don't think that there's a lot
let
of,
me ask you a question. Is there anybody here who objects to us communicating with the city as to these 2 budget proposals?
I want it to be a specific motion
Okay.
that says,
Okay,
the Neighborhood Council Emergency Preparedness Alliance endorses
okay, let me
proposals,
do it.
fill in the blanks.
Okay, the first one would be that the NCEPA endorses the Dunn budget request BM 4703 for Neighborhood Council Emergency Preparedness Program. The second would be that let's see what they call it. Okay, they call it that the NCEPA support EMD's budget request for Ready or LA Neighborhood Ryland. That's what they call it. Those are what are in their budgets right now. So.
Okay, I move that we accept those funds.
We've already,
Okay.
we've got that motion.
All right, the motion's there. So that's specific that we support those 2 proposals.
Yeah, both and second.
Okay. Anybody opposed to that?
I'm not opposed, we might want to add the words after careful consideration
Okay.
right at the beginning.
Okay. Okay, we will. And you'll help me write it, that's fine.
You've already written it, it's
Okay.
already there.
And I will, we can't file a CIS, but we can file a public comment, and that will be on CF 17-6000 or what 18-6000, whatever the budget thing is, and we can file it as a public comment, and the clerk's office will have it. We can also send it directly to Mr. Krikorian and Mr. Wesson and say, hey, we think this is where we are. What do we want to do with the
How about let's vote?
the former Lank motion?
We'll take that up next.
Okay, let's take that up next. The LA Neighborhood Council Coalition, and I sent it out to everybody, their proposal is 400.
Let's
change
vote
the
on
IPR.
these right now, and then we can take
I
up,
thought we did vote on them.
well, you haven't asked for a vote.
Okay, those in favor, please so signify. Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed, okay. So they,
Abstentions.
what? Oh, any abstention?
We don't do that.
Anybody not voting? Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, I would like to suggest that we accept Gwen's proposal that we will take this report back to the harbor area, and our joint neighborhood council groups will come back with a rewritten version.
formalize it, we'll send it as a letter to the...
Well, you haven't passed it yet, but we'll bring it back in
Bring it back
rewritten
and-
form.
in January, we'll pass it. And we'll send it as a letter
Follow the
to,
Dunn rules.
we'll send it as a letter to the powers that be. Bill?
I would like time to do the G2 that I would expect EMD to have done, but didn't, with all these other city departments to find out, do they actually have or not have an emergency plan for providing water
Okay,
and food and gas
Okay.
and electricity?
I'll just tell you.
And I'll do that by next
Wait a
week.
minute, I'll tell you right now, is it EMD that's administering the mega, or who's administering?
It's the Business Operations Center.
The business from here?
Yeah, it's EMD, but we work in coordination with the Business Operations.
Okay. Then what you want to do is you want to contact the Business Operations Center.
Brent, well, give me a call and I'll.
Give her a call,
Yeah,
because
she manages.
what we're talking about is there's supposed to be two what they call mega contracts.
And we have.
And there's two companies that are not in the city of LA that are contracted to deliver food and water even before FEMA gets here, and they're called mega contracts because nobody's sure exactly what it's going to cost to bring all that in. They've got some estimates, but that's it. So there is something in place. How well it will work if the infrastructure's to support it,
Yeah, right,
I
over
don't know.
domestic freeways and over.
I don't know.
Mr. Chair,
Bob?
we do have the Lank motion, which basically supports the city spending more money for CERT instructors. Whether this is enough or whether we want something else, it strikes me as not particularly germane to this. It says that we could afford some more CERT instructors. For that reason, I would suggest that we take up this motion, simply changing Coalition Lank to Emergency Preparedess Alliance in two places.
But basically what it is, it's asking for $480,000, $120,000 a year for four more instructors. I think it's a recognition, it's a start of a recognition that we need people trained somehow to at least help themselves, okay? And that's where we are.
I second the addendum and second the main motion.
What?
Move the motion?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved, motion's been moved and seconded. Brief,
And the addendum seconded.
And then you can amend it.
Bill?
And the addendum seconded.
Wayne back?
Yeah, I just kind of wonder, the fire department
That's what I suggested.
has a payroll. They pay the firefighters. Some sit at a desk, some put on fires, some push paper, and some teach CERT. Why should we have to fund it at all? They take an instructor that's sitting at a desk, reassign him to go teach CERT, and be done with it. Why do we have to come up with extra money for them to have extra personnel? They have the personnel now. We know one of the purposes of the CERT instructor cadre is those that can no longer handle, and I'm perfectly happy with this, that can no longer handle the rigors of putting out fires on structures. We have inspectors, same thing. Former firefighters that can generally no longer handle the stresses both to the body. When you look at the body of a firefighter, it's like he's been in a prize fight for 50 years. Everything has been broken at least once. Lungs don't work, heart doesn't work, a lot of things don't work anymore. So why do we have to come up with the money? It exists there, just take them from one place to another. Well, we can try it anyway, it's 1/10 or 100th of 1%.
Did we just move them up?
The motion's been moved, okay. That was a discussion on the motion.
Yeah, that was the discussion, that was all.
My only response would be, because if you take somebody off of this position and move them here, you have to have somebody to fill that position.
No, this is, some of those filled positions are just waiting for pensions to rest.
Bill?
For one, the CERT program as taught today was not what was originally envisioned. The version that's taught today has proved to be ineffective. At the Northridge earthquake, after 18,000 people had gone through the CERT program, only a dozen came out to do anything. The program is overkill for what needs to be conveyed to citizens for them to take care of themselves. Therefore, not enough people will go to the 7-week, 18 hours worth of training to learn just how to take care of their family and prepare their house. We have better programs, more suited for filling the need of the majority of people in the city that they can take within 3 hours. So I'm against this motion.
So my,
So you voted no.
Okay,
I'm Pam Gom, I'm in San Pedro, and I took the CERT training about 3 years ago, and I absolutely agree with you. It was an introduction to me to the emergency preparedness, but it does not solve the problem at the grassroots level of individual preparation.
my experience having taken CERT 1 in the spring has been a very positive one, introducing me to opportunities for search and rescue training, for example, introducing me to ham radio, and giving me a checklist of things that I'm required to have if I want to really be one of these CERT people. That was what got me to SOS Products this morning to buy, you know, my rope and other things. So I found it to be very effective, and I've been very impressed with the community that I happen to be part of, or the CERT battalion that I happen to be a part of, and I'm looking forward to increasing my involvement. So as great as these conversations are, the activity that's come out of CERT for me has been a really positive experience, and I think it's been very effective.
Well, if you want a comparison between what it does and what it doesn't do, look at the file called Emergency Response Training Programs. It's a spreadsheet that was sent out to you.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay. And you can see what it does and what it doesn't do. There is a better program. The program that I've highlighted here, called Neighborhood Team Training Program, which is very close to what the other cities around us have gone to. They took the CERT program and married it with the Red Cross Emergency Medical Responder Program, which is exactly what I did to create the Neighborhood Team Program. Every time LA CERT team has participated in the Business and Industry Council on Emergency Preparedness competition, LA comes in dead last. And cities like Manhattan Beach, Culver City, Redondo Beach, who have a CERT program very close to what I teach, come in at the top. So what we need to do is to get the Los Angeles Fire Department to start beefing up what they're teaching to be closer to what is taught in Culver City, Manhattan Beach, and these other places. And they can, and I offered my program to them, but they didn't want to do anything other than the cushy job that they already have.
So if we fund the instructors, couldn't we then try and address the inadequacies in the program?
They could, but their management won't let them because their management doesn't want to expend the effort.
Okay, well, I wouldn't want to do anything to slow down the existing momentum for CERT in my area.
No, it is a great program because it gives injured firefighters and burned out paramedics jobs. And it should be continued to do that.
That was a little cynical.
Bob,
Yeah,
and then we'll go to a vote.
Mr. Chair, I agree with I agree with all of the bills, and at the same time, my thought is there may be some usefulness of CERT. I think it's not a panacea, but it's also has some use. And at the current level of trainers, it's simply almost non-existent in terms of the number of trainers. So doubling the number of trainers would be useful at that level. And for that reason, with those limitations, I support the motion, and I would also support later that this organization consider an evaluation of the CERT program and Bill's program and other programs to see what we might do better. And if there are legitimate critiques of CERT, we'll get to them.
Okay, all right. So let's find out. Those in favor of the motion, please signify.
Which motion?
This is the 4 new CERT trainers. Those in favor? Those opposed? Okay. So the motion does pass. We're kind of skinny on people here right now. I did have a long thing to read from one of the CERT people, but that's enough. So, thank you everyone. Thank you for coming out during the holiday season. I know it's kind of tough. It's been a good session. And Bob, you guys from San Pedro rewrite that, get it done. Bill Pope, talk to yeah, and get the business center to contact about those mega contracts.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.